Hello and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, my name is Tristan and welcome for the first time. Today we are actually going to be talking about if college and getting a college degree is actually worth it. Now, in terms of worth it, what I'm going to be talking about is if actually going to school, spending the time, spending the money, ends up making you more money in the future. And I'll kind of be talking about the costs, the best ways, the best degrees to get, other options, those sort of things. And so if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, give it a like, and also hit that subscribe button to see more of my content. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is the cost of college. Now, college isn't only the tuition you pay, it's kind of the room and board depending upon what school you go to if you don't have kind of the option of living at home, especially if you're going out of state. Also, food costs is sometimes tied into that, but then you also kind of have books and supplies that you need to go to school. Now, that's not going to be the case for everyone, but when I was kind of doing my research and I looked up the averages, I found that the average cost of college, if you get in-state tuition, so if you're a resident and you go to college in the state that you live in, costs about $9,950 a year, whereas if you do out-of-state tuition, it's more around $25,000 per year. So right off the bat, one of the things that's definitely beneficial is to go to school in the state that you already live in because you get about $15,000 cheaper in in-state tuition. And so that's kind of a really big deal. Of course, if you don't have any good schools in your area and it's more beneficial for you to go to a certain school, depending upon what kind of career you're going into, that may also be worth it, but that's always something to consider. Now, the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about is all these Ivy League schools that are kind of a big deal. You know, they look great on your resume. They can get you these amazing jobs. However, not everyone really needs an Ivy League school. So for example, a school like Harvard costs about $46,000 a year, which is insane. That's just in 1 year. So instead of paying $40,000 for in-state tuition for 4 years, you're going to be paying closer to $180,000, $185,000 just to get a college degree. However, if you're going into a really high-paying job, maybe you're going to become a doctor, or you're going to become a Wall Street analyst, then yeah, something like Harvard may actually be worth it and may pay off in the long run. Now, just to give you an idea of kind of the school that I went to a school called Utah Valley University. It used to be a community college. It's now a full-on university. They also offer kind of master's degrees and things like that. But my degree cost me about $2,500 a semester, so $5,000 a year. So I roughly went to college for about the cost of 20 grand. Now, luckily for me, my dad actually works at the university that I went to, Utah Valley University, and so I got free tuition. So of course, in my case, college may have been worth it for me, whereas for some people it may not have been. Now, the other thing to consider is if you're able to get scholarships for college, and scholarships are a huge deal, whether they're athletic scholarships, you have ethnicity scholarships, you have scholarships for a lot of different things like gender scholarships or even like scholarships just for being smart. And so you can get scholarships for a lot of different things. They're out there. Tons of scholarship money doesn't get claimed every year. So if you are going to college, definitely apply for those. And sometimes you can even get paid for going to college if you get enough scholarships. But what we're going to do, let's take the cost of college and we're going to take it at the average cost in the United States. So it's about $9,950 a year, or let's just round that up to $40,000 for that college degree, and it takes about 4 years of your time. Now, the average starting salary of someone with a college degree is roughly around $50,000. Now, that takes the highest and the lowest. Some are much, much higher than that, and some are much lower, but again, that's going to be the average. So about $50,000. Now, the average starting salary of someone who doesn't even have a high school diploma is around $24,000 a year, but with a high school diploma, it's closer to $31,000 a year. And so rounding those numbers, let's just take the difference. Let's take the $30,000 because most people are probably gonna have a high school diploma, and then let's take the $50,000 of someone with a bachelor's degree and say there's a $20,000 difference. Now, that $20,000 difference would make up the cost of college within the first 2 years. However, there's about 4 years worth of time that you weren't working where someone else could have been working. And so that's an extra $120,000 that you also need to make up. So total, instead of just making up $40,000, you need to make up $160,000 worth of wages. And so with $160,000, if you take in the added wages that you'll be getting, about $20,000 a year, that would roughly put you at 8 years to make up that difference, which seems like a while, but really it's not that long. It's a little bit, it's about a fifth of your working career if you work about 40 years in your life. Now, one thing that also doesn't really take into account is getting promotions. A lot of those entry-level jobs that you don't need a college degree for may take a little bit longer to get raises. You may not get as big of raises or may not have as great of opportunities. Now, there's always exceptions. There's always people who don't have a college degree that have done awesome. And this doesn't even take into account like starting your own business or something like that. But typically and traditionally, if you get a college degree, you're usually put into a place where you can go and get a bunch of experience and then quickly move up that ladder if that's what you wish to do. And so you can get raises a lot quicker and end up making a lot more money. And really, you'll probably cut out that time difference from 8 years to probably about 6 years. And then after that, it'll exponentially grow and make you a lot more money in the long run. And so really with that data alone, I would say that getting a college degree probably is worth it if that's kind of the route you want to go down. Of course, you have to be able to find a job that you like, that's going to pay you well. And if college makes sense for that, then yeah, it's definitely worth it. However, if you don't want any of those jobs that maybe a college degree is going to help you get, then it's probably not worth it. There are other options out there like trade schools or starting your own business that can definitely be worth it as well. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is trade schools. And the average trade school is probably going to cost you about $33,000. However, the salary that you're going to get out of it is going to be about $35,000. So roughly about $5,000 more than if you didn't get that trade school certificate or certification. However, with trade schools, you earn a lot of different skills and you kind of develop a lot of different skills that are going to help you in the long run and maybe even starting your own business. So this kind of meshes into kind of the starting your own business area as well, where a lot of people who go to trade schools end up making six figures because they either start their own business or they get really, really good at their trade and they can charge a lot of money. Especially in an industry or an area where a lot of people are going to get college degrees. So there's higher demand for people with those skills that you would learn in a trade school, things like plumbing, electrician, and those sort of things. And so really trade schools can also be a good option for you. Right off the bat, they may not pay as much as someone who gets a college degree, but they're still a really good option. Now, trade schools can kind of lead into starting your own business as well. But the next one I want to talk about is starting your own business. This can either go really well or really bad for you. One thing I'd recommend before starting a business, unless you have an amazing idea and you have the skills needed, of course you can learn a lot of those skills from just Googling things, watching YouTube videos, other people's experiences, but is go ahead and get some experience working for another company if something similar you want to do. That way you can learn the ins and outs, learn if you even like that business model before you go and start trying to set up a business or a company in that space. That way you don't get a lot of time and money invested and then realize you don't like it in the end. Now, another option that I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're probably familiar with, and you've probably heard people talk about this before, is becoming a real estate agent, kind of similar to starting your own business. However, as a real estate agent, you can go and work for someone else, kind of like a trade school in terms of you get a certificate or you get a degree and you go ahead and you go and work for someone else and you learn a trade and then you kind of start your own thing. However, if you're good with people, you're good at kind of sales, selling, and you're just really interested in real estate, that could be an awesome option and you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars very, very quickly. But the last thing I want to talk about, let's say you made it this far and you're like, yeah, college is worth it. College is right for me. I want to work for someone else. I don't want to start my own thing. I want to learn and then I kind of want the easy route. I'd kind of consider college the easy route. Yeah, it's a lot of work up front. However, it prepares you really well for getting a job. And so what I want to talk about is actually some of the best college degrees that you can get. Now, of course, go for something you're interested in. You never want to work in something or an area that you're not interested in, you don't love, because then really what's the point? I guess other than just making money. But what I want to talk about is some of the best degrees that you can get. These aren't the only degrees, but kind of these are some of the highest paying degrees, at least for entry-level positions right out of college. And the first one is really anything engineering related, whether that's nuclear engineering or even sometimes it's like computer science type engineering, those sort of things. Really anything engineering has great opportunities, and kind of the average salaries coming out of an engineering degree are upward of the $80,000 to $100,000 range. And so engineering, top degree, that's awesome. If that's the kind of thing you're into, it probably does require a ton of math, which I know not a lot of people love, but that's why those jobs pay so much, because they're in high demand. And the next one, this is actually something I kind of wish I went into because I am really interested in this and I do work in the tech space currently, but this is computer science, and computer science majors roughly make about $75,000 a year out of college, of course, depending upon where you go to, what company you're with, and what school you got your degree from. But computer science can pay a lot of money. Similar to math, it may not be as much math, but it is a lot of like coding, sitting down, spending a lot of time in front of a computer. You have to learn a lot and kind of be typically kind of smart to do these sort of jobs. And so computer science is a really, really good degree if that's something that you're into. It also, one thing that I really like about it is you don't have to talk to customers or other people as much. And so you kind of just get to do your own thing, which is for some people really great because you do just kind of get to sit there and be on your own and just get your work done. However, for some other people, like part of me as well loves talking to customers because I get to like interact with other people and talk and things like that. And it's nice to be able to interact with other people while you're working so you don't get so lonely. The next thing are those math related degrees. So these are kind of like your accountings, your finances, your statistics, just typical mathematics, whether you're going to be teaching those eventually, or you're going to a company where they really just need those skills. And so anything math related is probably going to pay you around $70,000. Again, math isn't people's favorite thing. However, kind of that trend, engineering requires math. Lots of things mathematically just pay more because they're in higher demand. Now, the next degree is a physicist. Physicists make about $65,000 a year. So that's, not too bad, kind of below CS, below those mathematical degrees. But, being a physicist, that could be something that you're interested in. And so $65,000 a year is pretty good for a starting salary. After that, we got our software engineers. And so again, engineer title, software title, two pretty good words that are typically going to pay you a lot of money when you go ahead and get a degree in that space. But again, $65,000 a year is pretty good starting salary. And so software engineer is a great job and a great opportunity if those are the kinds of things that you're into. And the next one I want to talk about is just going to be your general business degree. Now, this does include finance. I know I mentioned that before, but this is going to include your finance, your accounting, your personal financial planning, your marketing, economic degrees, and then also just kind of general business management type degrees. And these can range from probably around $35,000 to even $75,000, but on average, it's going to pay you about $57,000 a year. And that's a pretty good degree. Business degrees aren't as hard as maybe your computer sciences or even some of like your engineering degrees. But if you do get into accounting and finance and econ, things like that, those are some of the higher paying ones, but they also take a little bit more work. Whereas if you go like the business management or the marketing route, it's a little easier quantitatively at least. And so a lot more people do gravitate to those degrees, and they still do pay pretty well because you are in that business area and you still have that great opportunity for growth and to get those higher level positions. One thing that I love about business, that's actually where my degree is in, is you can really go to any company because most companies operate as a business, and so they need business-minded people, and you can grow into management through that kind of path, and so you don't have to stay in your traditional path that you went down, like marketing and things like that. However, that can be done with really any different degree throughout colleges, and so it really just depends upon what you want. And just like you can kind of transition to any degrees, so many different degrees can also transition into teaching degrees. So if you love teaching, you can really go get a degree in whatever you want and then become a teacher. And depending upon what level you're teaching at, you can get paid anywhere from $40 to $50 to $170,000. Now, if you go to those Harvard schools, I don't know, maybe upwards of $1 million if you're teaching a really awesome degree, but just depends upon what school you're going to and what you're teaching. And the last degree that I want to talk about is actually construction management. So it's kind of like a trade, but construction management is actually a degree that's offered in college at the bachelor's level. And as construction management, you can, of course, go into construction, but also kind of managing the process instead of just being one of the entry-level construction workers. And so that's going to pay you about $54,000 a year. But yeah, there you go. There's my video on if getting a college degree is really worth it. As you can see, for some people, it's definitely worth it. For some people, it's probably definitely not. It just depends upon where you want to work, what kinds of jobs you want, and then also roughly how much money and what type of lifestyle you want. And so really, college degrees, I would say they're worth it, but not for everyone, especially if you're more of that entrepreneurial minded person. You could definitely go a route without it. However, it definitely could be beneficial as well. I think if you don't know what you're doing though, and you have the time, go ahead and get a college degree in something that you're interested in that has a good job outlook. So definitely research kind of what the jobs are for those degrees first, so you can get an idea of how much money you can get paid. And then you can find out, hey, am I going to be able to pay off my student loans quick enough, or is it better for me to just do something else with the money I already have, and kind of figure that out. So really, it's up in the air depending upon what you want to do and what your outlook looks like. But yeah, I hope this video kind of helped give you an idea of if a college degree is worth it, and also give you some job options or kind of degree options that you could go into if you weren't really sure what you wanted in college. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video and you made it this far, thank you, and go ahead and give it a like and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next week.